If you have a true, strange, or scary story you'd like to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it my way. Or, as I was about to say, send me an email at astheravendreams@gmail.com. And of course, thank you. Hey Raven. I've been a lurker for quite a while, and I'm a pretty big fan of your glitch stories. Mostly because they're wild and give that sense of validation that maybe, just maybe, we aren't all crazy. Maybe there are some weird things going on out there in the universe, things we can't explain. After what happened last night, I'm kind of clinging to that because what happened was bizarre. By no means is this a terrifying story, and by no means will it make any best of glitch list or anything. But it happened, and I want to tell you about it. To start, just a little bit of context. I'm a bit of a night owl. I've always been more awake in the evenings than during the day. I live alone right now with my dog, Charlie. Around 11 or so, Charlie and I like to go for a quick walk around the block. I let him do his business, and then we get back to the house and he usually passes out. I'll be up for a few hours after that, but that's typically the last big thing that I do every day. When we go on our walks, I always take my keys with me. It's one of those carabiner clips that I usually hook to my belt loop, and it's a bit of a jingly mess as it's my house key, car keys, and the keys for my desk at work. Last night, we started off with our normal routine. Leashed up, out the door, down to the big oak tree at the corner a few rows down, and then back. When I grabbed my keys, for some reason, I chose to not clip them to my belt. And instead, I hooked them to the loop at the end of his lead, the one where your hand goes through. We were almost back when I tripped, which caused Charlie to pull a bit. When I fell, I didn't let go of the lead, but I did hit the ground, so the keys did too. I heard them hit the concrete with a metallic clanking noise. I got up, brushed myself off, and when I was fully standing, it occurred to me that the lead was a bit lighter. I checked, and sure enough, my keys were gone. They were no longer attached to the loop. I cursed under my breath and looked around at the ground to see where they would have fallen, but they weren't anywhere near me. I grabbed my phone and turned on my flashlight, searching every inch in a 5 or so foot radius, but I couldn't find them. I was getting flustered, but I figured that I could get Charlie home and then come back over this way to try and find them. I had a spare key hidden outside, so at least I could get into the house and let him in, so he wasn't sitting out there with me while I searched for my other keys. I was only about 2 houses away from my own, so I finished the walk and I let him in, and then came back toward where I had fallen down, but this time with an actual flashlight. I searched everywhere, and I mean everywhere. I meticulously combed every square inch of that sidewalk, the curb, the small strip of grass between the sidewalk and the street, even the storm drain cover just in case. I shined my light everywhere. I got down on my hands and knees and swept my hands across the concrete like a deranged detective, but nothing. I spent a literal hour out there. My neck was stiff, my knees were hurting, and I was starting to panic. I had a spare key for the house, obviously. I even had a spare key for my car, but I did not have a spare key for my work desk. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was going to be annoying because I was going to have to figure out who I needed to talk to, how to go about getting a replacement, or just having them break the lock and replacing it. The problem was that I had a lot of work in those drawers, so I would need it done immediately, and I really was not looking forward to the hassle of it all. After an hour and a half, I did a bit more searching after I hit that mental wall with the whole key thing, and then I finally gave up. I went back inside, fully dejected and genuinely not understanding how the hell my keys had just disappeared when I fell. It was like they fell into some kind of wormhole and were sucked up by the universe. When I got back in, I grabbed a bottle of water and sat down at my tiny dining room table. I started thinking about the fact that my keys were just gone, and I was getting kind of upset. At this point, it was obvious that I was not going to find them. They were completely gone, but some silly thing in my brain told me to go back outside just for a moment to see if they were somewhere around. So I did. I stood up and walked out the side door to where my car was parked, and that's when I saw them. My keys. There in the passenger side door were my keys. The car key was in the lock, and the other keys were dangling there as if they had been there the whole time. So now comes the point where some might say that I just left them in the door for whatever reason, but I have a few thoughts on that. One, my car has keys that can unlock the door, but it also has electronic locks. As such, I have, to the best of my knowledge, never used the key to actually unlock the door. To continue from that thought, even if I had been using my key to unlock the door, why would I use it on the passenger side and not the driver's side? Another issue with that thought is the fact that I used the key to lock the front door when Charlie and I went for a walk. I didn't come out the side door, so I was nowhere near my car. I felt the keys jingle on the lead as we were walking. I heard them jingle, so I know for a fact that I had them up to the point where I tripped. And even then I heard them hit the concrete, and yet there they were, sitting with the key firmly planted into my passenger side door. I had been outside for nearly 2 hours looking for these keys, and they ended up in my car door waiting for me. It makes absolutely no sense to me. The only logical explanation that I have been able to come up with is that someone put them there because they knew that they were my keys. But even that doesn't hold up when I think about it. It was around 11:30 at night. Nobody else was outside. Plus, I was in an area where I dropped them for the majority of those 2 hours. I had walked back to the house to drop Charlie off and grab a flashlight, and I was inside for about 3 minutes while I got that bottle of water, but I don't think that was long enough for someone to grab them and bring them back to my car. If that is what happened, then the person would have had to have found them in the 5 minutes total that I wasn't in the area where I dropped them, known for some reason that they were mine, and then ran them over to my house to, for some strange reason, put them in my car door. And, while they did that, I would have had to have not noticed them, even though the window to the side of my house was in my line of sight. While I guess it is possible, it just doesn't really make sense, unless I have a very crafty and close-following stalker. Possible, sure, but not very probable. If that's not the explanation, however, then the only thing I can think of is some weird supernatural force gave me my keys back. So, I guess I'll just have to chalk it up to being a glitch in the Matrix. Hey Raven, thanks for reading this small glitch. I've been listening for less than a month, but I'm so into stuff like this that, in fact, I was feeling sort of left out. I was scouring my memory, but actually couldn't think of any sort of glitch that had happened to me, like, ever. Until yesterday. I've been out of work for about 2 years because I'm trying to get onto disability. About 10 years ago, I suffered a stroke, and my speech, typing, and other language-related things were affected. In fact, I should apologize right now for any typos. Nah, you did fine. Anyway, since I've been unemployed, I've had to cut back on fun things like Netflix, Apple Music, etc. One of the things which I used to like to play with is Dreams by Wombo, which is an AI art app that I would either type a prompt and let it go, Or more often than not, I would find a piece of artwork of my own and see what happens when I put that through the app. Anyway, the day before yesterday, I thought about that app and was thinking of possibly re-uploading for it, biting the bullet for the subscription fee, and I made a mental note to look up the price and see if I could afford it. Cut to the next day, and I pick up my iPad and tap the icon for Dreams, and the last I saw of it was the payment screen months ago, the last time it was running on my device. I tap the icon and it fires up. Not quite believing it was working, I typed in a simple prompt and it worked. And that's weird, but surely it was just working in basic mode. Not my usual paid premium, right? I tried a premium style, and it worked. Before long, I had it humming like it was years ago. Like always. And then last night, I was listening to your compilation on YouTube and I heard a similar glitch story to mine. The person mentioned that they had checked their credit card activity. I hadn't looked at my credit card activity, but when I did, nothing could be found. So glitch confirmed? I was going to say, my memory isn't what it used to be, for small things like my porch light last night was on, but that could have just been my forgetfulness, and as such, I normally wouldn't mention it. But my porch light was on when I thought I had turned it off. I've been listening to a quantum jumping hypnosis thing as I go to bed for the last week, and so I thought, well, maybe a quantum switch / glitch in the Matrix, who can say? I said it was a small glitch, possibly stupid, but I didn't pay for that app. At least, not in the world that I came from. Hi, Raven. I love your channel, and I am an avid listener to all the wonderful and strange Glitch in the Matrix stories that you share with all of us fans. Thank you. I just recently found out that I had a Glitch in the Matrix event that I didn't even know about. I currently live in the Shenandoah Valley, and have lived here since 2000. I know this town pretty well, and especially an area that has a grocery store located in a shopping center right off of a main road in town. I was a passenger in a car last year with my friend, whom I will call B. She was driving, and I needed to get cupcakes for an event that was going to be happening later that day, and I had not yet had a chance to go to the grocery store. We were on our way to do errands, and my friend B said, "Hey, let's go to the Food Lion located near where we were driving." I said to her, "No, B, that grocery store's closed. It hasn't been open for years." Well, my friend said no, indeed, it was open for business. She had been there, and let's go ahead and stop in there to get the cupcakes. So, I was game. I thought I could be wrong, and so as we went to the shopping center that had the Food Lion in it, lo and behold, it was open for business. I went in and bought my cupcakes, and the store looked fairly brand new. I mean, it was very clean, well-stocked, and full of people shopping in there. I got exactly what I wanted and had no problem with checking out or anything. We went on to the event that was scheduled for that day, and everything was just fine. This was in late 2024. I was talking to another one of my friends today. Her name is R, and we were chatting about the new grocery stores that are going to be opening up in our area, and what grocery stores are already here, commenting on how the area is growing. I happened to mention the Food Lion being the only Food Lion left in our area, and that it was too bad that there were not more of them around. My friend R said to me, "No, that Food Lion hasn't been open for years, and that I must be mistaken." I told her that I had thought that too, but it turns out that it is open, and that I had shopped there late last year, and explained to her about getting the desperately needed cupcakes. Well, she went online and sent me a picture of this Food Lion that was closed, completely empty, and for sale. As I dug a little deeper into this, I found out that the Food Lion that I had gone to last year had been closed and empty since 2016. No new grocery store was in its place. There was a smaller grocery gas station type of grocery store that was fairly small, and not in the same location, and could never be confused with the very large Food Lion that I had shopped in. I know that I shopped at a Food Lion last year. I was with B, whom I haven't talked to about this yet, but I plan on doing just that and seeing if she remembers this incident in the exact same way. Anyway, it was to my utter surprise to realize that the store that I had shopped in just last year had been closed since 2016. I don't have any receipts. I would not have had any reason to keep the receipts for the cupcakes. And I seriously thought that the Food Lion was still there up until tonight, when I talked to my friend R. I do not know if this was a time slip or a glitch in the Matrix or some kind of other paranormal event, but it was certainly freaky. And it's got me thinking how strange life really is. Just an aside, my friend B has also experienced something interesting. I bank at a local bank that is about a mile or so from my house. She's gone to that bank several times and told me that it was closed permanently. I know that's not true, because I go to the bank all the time, and I bank there, and I make deposits there, and I kept telling her, no, indeed, B, it is open for business, and has never been closed for any length of time for any reason. But now I think maybe she was experiencing a glitch of her own. I'm thinking that maybe these glitches happen more often than we think, and we just don't realize it. Because unless somebody brings up the fact that something is supposed to be closed that you think is open, you don't really think about an everyday occurrence as being something out of the ordinary. Anyway, I just thought I would share this very interesting, to me, glitch in the Matrix that I experienced without even knowing that I experienced it a year ago. Thank you for reading this, and if you think it's interesting enough to share on your channel, I would love that. Hello, Raven. I'm a big fan of your channel. I've been watching for a couple of years. I don't know if you would consider my story a glitch or paranormal, but I'll let you decide. This incident happened many years ago. I was 19 years old and I was working for a florist in my sleepy West Texas town. The florist and his wife were really good to me, treating me as a member of the family. I was regularly invited to their home for holidays, etc. I was very responsible and they trusted me. One of my many duties at the floral shop was to take the leather bank envelope containing cash and checks to the bank once a week. This was many years ago when there was no electronic transfer or anything like that. I simply walked about a block and then crossed the street to the bank. I always returned the same way. One day I set out to do this easy and routine task, and for no reason, I did something different. I decided to walk down the other side of the street, the side the bank was on, and look at some of the little antique stores that I had noticed before. I was enjoying looking in the windows of the antique stores, and then I decided it was time to go back to work. There was a traffic light about half a block down, so I headed that direction. It was at that time that I noticed a long rectangular building that I had never noticed before. It seemed to be made out of cinder blocks, but painted white. There were a couple of white vans parked outside. Several men were carrying small boxes with no labels into the back of the building. The door seemed to be similar to an automatic garage door. It appeared to be very dark inside. The men seemed kind of sinister. They were wearing black from head to toe, and they all seemed similar in appearance. Black hair and dark skin, Romani or Egyptian, something like that. They certainly did not notice me. They were single-mindedly carrying these boxes into the dark building. I cannot explain what I did next, as I was a very cautious and conservative 19-year-old girl who never took a chance on anything. I followed one of the dark men into the building. It was very dark when I got inside. The light from outside did not penetrate the darkness inside the building, although it was a very sunny summer day. It was very cool in this building. I could hear water running, seemingly far in the distance. I was intrigued, and then I heard a noise behind me that almost made my heart stop. It was the sound of the automatic door closing. I was not far from the door, but I felt slightly paralyzed, as it seemed that I was going to have difficulty getting out in time. And then, absurdly, I said out loud, "Please let me out." The door immediately stopped about halfway to the ground. I ran out of the building as fast as I could and did not look back. Somehow I made it back across the street in what seemed like only a few seconds, and I stood outside the floral shop. I tried to understand what had happened. As I stood there, a woman came out of the accounting office next door to our shop. She smiled and pointed to my hand and said, "Kind of early for that, isn't it?" I looked down at my hand, and to my shock, I realized I was holding a beautiful and strange bottle with a small amount of water in the bottom. The bottle appeared to have no seams or labels. It was thin but heavy. I've never seen anything like it before or since. I also realized that my jeans from about the knee area down and my sneakers were soaking wet. I was increasingly confused. I slowly walked into the shop. My employer was behind the counter. He looked up with one expression of anger and relief. He demanded to know where I had been. I reminded him that I had gone to the bank as usual, and he said, "But that was over 2 hours ago." He had called the bank to see if something had happened. They told him that I had made the deposit as usual and then left. He had stopped short of calling the police, but was getting increasingly worried. I tried as best as I could to explain my encounter with the sinister-looking men in the strange white building. I realized at that time that I was no longer clutching the strange glass bottle, but I still had the leather bank envelope in the other hand. Fortunately, my boss knew me to be a person who was both scrupulously honest and completely devoid of imagination. Nevertheless, he asked me to go with him and take a look at this place. When we arrived at the location, there was only an old service station that had closed down long ago. The windows were covered with dust. There was junk piled up inside. It had not been occupied for a very long time. There was no sign of the long white building. We walked a little further down the street and then back the other direction where the antique store was, and that building simply did not exist. My boss was giving me looks of concern and confusion. He didn't seem angry, but very worried. Finally, we got back to the store, and he suggested that I had fallen and bumped my head, and therefore couldn't remember exactly what happened. He suggested that I go home for the rest of the remainder of the day. In fact, he insisted on driving me home and making sure that I got into the house. Once I was home, I suddenly realized that I was exhausted, as though I had run a marathon. I peeled off my damp clothes and lay down on the bed, and then woke up 12 hours later. My employer and his wife came by the house to check on me and urged me to go to a doctor. I told him that I felt fine, but that I would go in to see my doctor. The doctor seemed to think there was nothing wrong. He said there was no signs of a concussion or anything like that. I didn't tell him about my bizarre experience. This happened many years ago, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. I've never been able to figure out exactly what happened that day. Were these men aliens? And how did an entire building appear and then disappear? I guess I will never have answers to these questions. Hello again, Raven. I have a couple more stories for you that happened in my kitchen a while back. They aren't very long, so I'll include both of them here. The first one concerns a jar of stevia that somehow transported itself from the cabinet where I keep it to a countertop where I know I didn't put it. That morning, I made a breakfast smoothie like I do every morning. I remember taking the stevia out of the cabinet, taking out the amount that I needed and putting it right back in the cabinet. I do this every day. A while later, I came back into the kitchen to get a snack out of the pantry. I had to pass a counter that stuck out a bit into the room to get to the pantry. I didn't notice anything on the counter as I passed it. When I got what I wanted and turned back around to go back, I saw the jar of stevia sitting on the counter with the top removed and sitting beside it. There is no way this could have happened by any normal means. I live alone except for a cat, and I doubt that he could have done this. And, as I mentioned, I distinctly remember having put the stevia back into the cabinet where I keep it. On another occasion, I had put a piece of apple inside of a zip-top bag and put it in the refrigerator. Later that day, I opened the refrigerator and found the apple and the bag still right where I had put them, but the apple was no longer inside the bag, but sitting on the shelf right beside it. The bag was still tightly zipped closed, but empty. How did the apple get out of the bag? I always enjoy your podcast, Raven. Please keep them coming. Oh, I will. Dear Raven, it's me again, the Gen X from Booker County in the Missouri Ozarks. I promised a glitch story next, so here's my most recent and witnessed glitch story. This happened in March of 2025. I had just been evicted and had no idea where I would go. As things happened, a new friend said that I could move my 5-wheel camper into their place. Since I had no other ideas, I was grateful and agreed. I had to wait a few days until another friend was available to pull the camper. I was upset, and not wanting to be in the company of the people who had evicted me, and I decided to stay the night where I would be moving to. When I laid down in their spare bed, I asked, "Where can I put my necklace?" I was told that I could put it on top of the headboard and it would stay. It's a handmade headboard with what looks like an old-fashioned lantern with small electric bulbs on each corner. So I put my necklace on the left side of the headboard beside the lamp. The necklace was nothing special, 3 beads I threw together on a string. The next morning, I woke and looked for the necklace, but it was gone. I pulled the mattress back and looked. I pulled all the bedding one piece at a time from the bed. My host came in and looked too, and we never found it. 2 days later, we drive 20 miles to where my camper is. I took my own vehicle so I could grab a few things that wouldn't be able to ride securely inside the camper. My new friend arrives just minutes after me, and we went inside the camper together to grab items and make sure they were secured. I went up the stairs and into the bedroom area. There, on the left side of my headboard, was the necklace. I immediately said, "You won't believe what I just found on my headboard." My friend asked what, and I say, "It's the necklace I lost 2 days ago at your house," as I held it up. "Was that a glitch like the story we listened to?" "Oh, absolutely," I replied. I had introduced my new friend to your narration on YouTube the day my necklace disappeared, and said, "I think this is what happened to my necklace. It's lost in a glitch." My intuition is like that. Sometimes I call stuff out, and I think I'm joking when I say it, but it turns out that I'm not. Hey guys, I've decided to post this here to see if anyone has a similar story or any theories about what this could be. The story is 100% true, and I fact-checked this with everyone involved. My grandma had this old film camera called a 110 camera. She'd taken some random photos of family members, including my aunt, my mom, and my great-grandma. These photos were taken in 1998 when my mom was around the age of 12 to 13 years old. When my grandma took the photos to get printed, she noticed the face of a little girl in them. She was so confused because she couldn't figure out who this child was. She even showed some of our family members and everyone was stunned. Years later, she realized that the face of that little girl was me. But how could this even happen when I was born in 2003? My grandpa even told my grandma to take the photos to the news because it was so unbelievable. But my grandma did not want that type of attention, which is why she keeps the photos hidden to this day. I wanted to post the photos for proof, but my mom and grandma disagree because they don't want them to go viral and because we want to keep our identities anonymous. If anyone has any similar experiences or theories, please comment below. So that, my lovely friends, was a collection of some Glitch in the Matrix stories that talk about the weird, strange, awkward, and bizarre things that can happen in our existence. Stories that fall under the supernatural umbrella. About the weirdness of our existence, about the simulation possibilities, things like that. Things that are just weird and don't work with our reality, or where reality falls short of its own existence, if you will. Hopefully you all enjoyed these stories. If you did, please do hit that like button, the like button of the video. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing. You can also join Patreon memberships, get early access to content like this, send in your stories, and see all my social media platforms and other places where you can listen to the podcast on astheravendreams.com. I also accept stories through email, astheravendreams@gmail.com. And yeah. I went through that really fast, didn't I? Huh. Usually, that means I'm missing something. What am I missing? I know the word of the week, but usually I'm in this for like 2 minutes before I hit the word of the week. I fell down the stairs on Thursday. I complained about it in my live stream on Saturday, but if you weren't there, sorry about the nose sniffle there. I fell down the stairs on Thursday. I slipped. I was going down the steps, slipped backwards, fell, and took the pain slide to the first floor. So there's that. Fun stuff. It still hurts to sit on Sunday. I'm sitting right now. It's not very painful to sit, let me rephrase that. It's the getting up from the sitting position that's going to hurt. It does hurt, so. Irrelevant, just wanted to complain about it one more time before it no longer hurts. Hopefully it goes away here pretty quickly. Anyways, yeah, alright. On the screen right now, and several moments prior to now, is a collection of all the amazing people, screenshots of all the amazing people, that used last week's word of the week in the comment section on that video. Me adding their names to the end of the video is a good incentive for them to comment. I screwed up that sentence. You know what I meant. Incent was the word, and these lovely people used said word in the comments on that video. Because of that, they get this extra shout out here at the end because they're awesome. Incent is a hard word to use because it is a root word, and whenever you say incent, you want to say incentivize or incentivized or incentive. But I also included those if they used it, because incent is part of that word, so I accepted it. Anyway, these amazing people followed through. Thank you to all of them. You guys are awesome. Let's move on to this week's word of the week. This week, the word of the week is of the utmost importance. It is utmost, U-T-M-O-S-T, meaning situate at the farthest or most distant point of the greatest or highest degree, quantity, number, or amount, most possible, extreme limit, or the highest, greatest, or best of one's abilities. Such as, I narrate these stories to the utmost of my ability, which is the highest, greatest, or best of one's ability. So, I do my best, in other words. I'll always do my best. Anyways, friends, use utmost get featured next week at the end of the video. Hope you all have a great week. Hope I see you again here very soon. But until then, remember you are loved, you are valid, you are important to the best that you can be. Don't forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.